Despite tough economic times, the tourism sector in South Africa has been growing from strength to strength. It's almost a fairy tale story in a country that's desperately seeking avenues for job creation. In the recent State of the Nation debate, President Jacob Zuma highlighted tourism as a key economic growth market. And 2014 is shaping up to be another successful year for the sector. In South Africa, but more especially Cape Town, the prediction is that hotel occupancy rates will increase. It already boasts over 60% occupancy. According to consultancy agency Hospitality and Tourism International, the increase in tourism numbers can be attributed to a few reasons. Firstly, and perhaps the most unconventional reason, is the passing of former President Nelson Mandela. While it was a big loss for the nation, it brought the world's media to the country and put the beauty of the Eastern Cape on an international stage. This, along with the country's rich history linked to the former president, is a good reason for many to travel to here. Then secondly, in the New York Times feature 52 Places to Go in 2014, Cape Town got the top honours. The publication described Cape Town as a place where you can witness a city in transformation, glimpse exotic animals, explore the past and enjoy that beach before the crowds. The UK's Guardian also gave Cape Town a nod as a destination not to miss in 2014. This is sure to create increased international traffic into the mother city. Staying in the oldest city in South Africa, it has more accolades to attract a different kind of business traveller. This year, it's been named the design capital of the world. For most, this means very little, but it's a title that will bring the creative world to the shores of Cape Town in search of inspiration. The title is an initiative of the International Council of Societies of Industrial Design. It's aimed at promoting and celebrating cities that have used design as a tool to reinvent themselves. And Cape Town is a city in the midst of change. Another reason that South Africa is set to perform well in the tourism sector is the weakening of the rand. Anyone that travels wants to get the most from their holiday spend, and with the local currency weakening against the US dollar, euro and pound, people in those regions would potentially choose South Africa as an exotic yet affordable destination.
Speaking to the team in Cape Town, Hospitality and Tourism International CEO Wayne Troughton elaborated on how local tourism is set to rise.
I'm sitting with Wayne Troughton. He is CEO of HTI Consulting. Wayne, you've come out with a statement saying that 2014 is going to be a bumper year for tourism in South Africa. Tell me, what is that insight based on?
I think it's going to be focused on South Africa, but also on Cape Town specifically. And it's based on a number of factors. One is chiefly the weak rand is encouraging a lot of tourists to come to South Africa, which is increasing growth. We're also seeing the Cape Town has been voted as the top destination to travel to by New York Times in 2014, and also the Telegraph recently has voted Cape Town as the top city from a travel perspective. We're also starting to see in 2014 with the election year, we're expecting a lot more travel within South Africa from a domestic travel perspective. And also with the Nelson Mandela Memorial Week, the coverage that the country got over that period is unprecedented, and also from a timing perspective is good. So we're expecting all these factors, and also the fact that Cape Town's been awarded the Design Capital of the Year for 2014. So there are going to be a lot of activities around that. So I think all these factors together will collectively result in significant growth in 2014.
Let's put it in some numbers, this growth. What kind of an increase are we looking at compared to 2013 in terms of the numbers of visitors we can expect, both from a local tourism point of view and an international point of view as well?
Well, it's difficult to answer that because in terms of numbers, it's not that easy. The numbers haven't been published yet to understand what the growth was on previous year. But just to put it in context, we've started to see significant growth already. In 2012, South African tourism reported growth of 10.2%. And this year, up until the latest figures went up to October 2013, the figures for the country were around about 4%. But if you take Lesotho out of that, who actually had a negative growth because of largely related to mining, it should be around about 5.5%. So we said 2 good years of positive growth. And if you look at overseas tourism has grown by 15% last year in 2012, and this year 10.2%. So it's very positive from an overseas perspective and also from an Africa perspective.
You touched on the attention that Cape Town is receiving from a point of view where it has been named as a top city to travel to and also World Design Capital 2014. Now let's talk about the Western Cape as the province which houses Cape Town. Is this going to translate in increased tourism for the entire province?
Yes, definitely, because when people come to South Africa and also to Cape Town, depending on what they're coming for, if they're coming from a leisure perspective, typically it's a long-haul destination. So people will come for 11 to 15 days. And typically, I think around about 90% of people will actually go into other parts of the Western Cape. 100% would typically come to Cape Town. But the Western Cape, and especially the Garden Route, benefits from that significantly. So we are going to see benefits, but from a business perspective, that might be localized more towards Cape Town. But from a leisure perspective, definitely.
The rand has been on a weakening trend for over 2 years now, which unfortunately is bad news for us that want to travel overseas, but good news for visitors coming into the country. How much of the increased trend in overseas visitors can be attributed to the weak rand, and how much is it just positive attention around South Africa as a tourism destination?
Well, I think in 2012 we didn't see much of devaluation of the rand. In 2013 it started more in the latter part of the year. So I think now we're seeing the rand actually at its weakest probably in sort of a 5-year period. So it's still uncertain to how far that's going to go. But I think there has been, but it's also the timing of it. Timing of everything is extremely important. So with the economic crisis in Europe people starting to travel more, we're starting to see traveling occurring. And because South Africa is a long-haul destination, it becomes very price elastic. So people would look at South Africa if it's a lot cheaper, then look at other destinations to travel to. It's not like a business destination that you travel to specifically for that purpose. And also specific types of tourism is even more price elastic. For example, like beach tourism, where you might decide on a destination, a small difference in price can be a massive difference in demand generated or demand growth. And also game tourism, game drives you might look at Kenya or South Africa. And if the rand is facilitating a lot cheaper destination, then you'll get a lot more people coming to South Africa from a game experience.
You touched on game tourism in reference to the rest of the continent, and I want to ask you about tourism to Africa as a whole. How is the continent performing when it comes to attracting international visitors?
The continent's performing extremely well. We've worked over the last 10 years, we've worked in 35 African countries. And when we started 10 years ago, we saw the growth potential in Africa. And a lot of people are starting to see it now, and it's accelerated in the last sort of 4 to 5 years. It's difficult to sort of put Africa into, you can't put it into a box in terms of, as one sort of area. because you're looking at 54 or 58 different countries. But typically, if you're looking at trends, the trends are that most of the growth has occurred in business tourism, and that's driven by sort of oil and mineral wealth in specific countries that have found us. So Africa is booming, and if you look at in terms of the GDP growth of certain countries, about 6 of the top 10 growth countries are actually in Africa. So, and we're starting to see that increase significantly. There's been new oil discoveries and gas discoveries in Mozambique, in Kenya, in Tanzania. So this is only going to go from strength to strength.
Which countries in Africa are attracting the most tourism?
Well, are you talking about numbers or specifically growth?
Growth.
Growth. Well, growth factors, it's difficult to see it. A lot of the countries some countries offer very low base, so you've got to put it in context. But in terms of the hottest sort of growth markets I would look at now would be sort of Mozambique, Tanzania, and in West Africa still Nigeria very strong, Angola, Ghana, and some of the sort of economic powerhouses. Even Kenya is doing pretty well. So you're seeing growth all over Africa, and that's what's encouraging, because if certain countries are not growing as fast as others, it's extremely positive, and it's been that way for the last 5 years.